If you've seen a few of Leigh's most recent videos, we took a hiking and photography trip to Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah very recently. If you've never been there, it's actually quite unique and amazing and wonderful. While our favorite is the Grand Canyon, which is spread out all over an immense region in Arizona, Bryce Canyon's smaller overall, but it seems to pack all the same beauty of the Grand Canyon in more approachable confines. It's just a lot smaller with a lot of the same magnificence. In a fairly ambitious long weekend of hiking, you can hike the majority of the trails in Bryce and still have time to take many, many photos. You can't possibly hike all the trails in the Grand Canyon in a weekend. Our lineup for the trip was the Hasselblad X1D 250C, which was definitely the star of the trip. But we're also working on a proper full review of the Fujifilm X100V. And to capture it all behind the scenes, our venerable Nikon Z7, more on that in a moment. And right after the trip, while we were starting to review our images, the Nikon Z5 was announced. And that begged this question. 2 years after its launch, with new Z cameras out and upcoming, how does the Nikon Z7 mirrorless camera stand up today? And today, from Leigh and my perspectives, I will answer that question.
Let me interrupt this video to remind members to watch the member-exclusive video this week. I have a bunch of items on my desk right now because I am working on a bunch of different projects and I'm sharing a little tidbit about each of these items. If you are interested in things like the member-exclusive videos, which give you a sneak peek of the behind-the-scenes workings here in Snapchick land, or the long-form courses, or the members-exclusive email, I will add a link in the description to find out more about channel membership. Okay, back to the video.
First, the what and the why. The Z7 is one of our two workhorse cameras, alongside the Sony a7R IV. Leigh tends to use the Sony more, and I tend to use the Nikon Z7 more. It's personal preference, as we have fairly similar lens lineups for each. If you're shopping for a new camera system, I'd encourage you to look at both. So our Z7, 45.7 megapixel, natively works with the new Z lenses, but very compatible with many f-mount lenses with the FTZ adapter. We've had our Z7 modified by Nikon for 12-bit video, which is a service they offer, but we wouldn't be bringing the requisite external recorder on this trip to do that. So that's just some extra info about our camera in particular, but we didn't use that 12-bit feature on the Bryce Canyon trip. The lenses. This was a source of great debate and anxiety prior to the trip. We knew we'd be hiking a lot, and we also knew that we love the Nikon 24-70 f2.8 Z lens. Most of our videos are filmed with it, like right now. But it's heavier and larger than this 24-70 f4 that we also own. The goal for this trip was lots of product photos of the Hasselblad and the X100V in action, so we did feel like we could get good depth of field and separation from the background even at f4, and we weren't wrong. We went with the f4 lens. The second and the only other primary lens that we brought is the full-frame Z-mount 14-30 ultra-wide zoom. We knew we'd love this lens way back before we bought it, before it was in our hands. For one, it's fairly compact for an ultra-wide. The f4 aperture helps with that. It can be smaller overall, and f2.8 continuous aperture ultra-wide would be much larger. Two, it's 14-30 rather than the fairly common 14-24 focal length for an ultra-wide zoom. 1 minute you can be shooting ultra-wide, the next moment you can be at 30 millimeters, which, although still a wide angle, is a very useful focal length for general photography. We used this lens for about 2/3 of our Z7 shooting, and we have no regrets. Now, I said primary. Two were our primary lenses. There is one more. Although wildlife wouldn't be a top priority on this trip, we did bring the f-mount 200-500 super zoom along with the FTZ adapter. We spent a lot more time carrying this in our backpacks than shooting with it, but when the call went out for wildlife, it certainly delivered, as it always does. So here's where the magic came in. The intention of the Z7 on this trip was to be our second unit camera, behind the scenes, with the Hasselblad and Fuji doing the heavy lifting for what you all would see of Bryce Canyon. The Z7, to be honest, for what we do, is old news. The Hasselblad and the X100V are two of the newer kids on the block and certainly tickle the imagination a little bit more. And then it happened. On the trail, at the rim, and in between, the Z7 was a reliable friend. Always at the ready with its high-resolution, full-frame goodness, a pair of fairly compact lenses, ready to deliver in low light of sunrise and sunset, and of course, during the well-lit midday conditions also. For its purpose on this trip, casual adventure photography, it delivered every bit as well as a D850 would have, a Z6, a Sony A7R4, a D6 or Z6, or any of the other current wonders of the world cameras. I won't say it delivered quite like the Hasselblad because that's its own medium format beast. Now there is a Z5 that's just announced, and it does have 2 memory card slots, which I know a lot of people were disappointed that the Z7 didn't have. To be clear, if that's essential criteria for you, then cameras like the Z7 that don't have that aren't on your radar and shouldn't be. It doesn't bother us a bit. Our X100V, our Leica Q2, and a few of the others back there only have 1 card slot, so use your own judgment. Okay, so what's the point today? My opinion and point today is the Z7 is every bit as good for us as it was the day it arrived. While originally relegated to B-roll on this particular trip with mid-tier lenses, it ended up being sort of the unsung hero. We had the built-in prime lens on the X100V, albeit with a wide-angle adapter also for those situations that called for it, and then 2 prime lenses for the Hasselblad in our hands. The Z7 had us covered from 14 millimeters through 30, and then up through 70 millimeters with the 24 to 70 f4, and then 200 to 500 for those few wildlife and telephoto landscape moments as well. Our procedure was, of course, to shoot with the Hasselblad and the Fuji as much as we wanted. But then the Z7 would come out of the bag and sort of back cleanup, if you catch my analogy there. It was the trusted, reliable camera that would give us full faith and flexibility to get the shots that we wanted for us. In fact, we never intended or envisioned that we'd make this video today. It wasn't on our radar. But after the trip, it felt like the right thing to come to you in a video and say, the Z7's still here with us. It's still good. It stood up to a multi-day hiking trip. It delivered the results that we've come to expect from it, and it's ready for more. We've captured tens of thousands of images on it and dozens, perhaps even hundreds of hours of video, 8-bit, 10-bit, and 12-bit. And here it stands today, in good shape, ready to go out again. And while you could say we certainly have a love and certain emotion for some of the other cameras back here, for the Z7, we trust it every time to deliver in various circumstances with both the F and Z mount lenses that we have. Trust it to be ready the next day to go do it all over again. We've got a ton of batteries for it. We don't need to charge it up even every night. While lacking some of the technical sophistication of our Sony A7R4, which I said and maintain is the most advanced camera we've ever used, for those of you who speak Nikon, the moment you pick up the Z7, you basically already know how to use it, and that's gold when you have those habits and you're in a situation where the muscle memory is already there. Thanks everyone. That's all for today, and we will talk again soon.